Previously.
In fact, you could probably do a whole video on the embankment. But I've kind of covered all this bit, so let's go over here. So I started my day, as I often do, at the Savoy. Not the luxury hotel though, we're going to go around the back. The first building on this site was called Savoy Palace, and it was named after Peter, the Count of Savoy, whom we can only hope was his campus's title. A bit like York House, which we talked about in videos gone by, it had its front on the fashionable Strand and its rear on the convenient Thames. I can't actually find any reliable images of Savoy Palace like the original thing, so I've done an artist impression here instead. Yeah, this. So you can see what I've done here is we have the Thames here with the boat in it. This is I have no idea what it looked like. This is what it could have looked like, Savoy Palace. In the background, there's the Strand. At first I drew a car, and then I realised there wouldn't have been any cars then, so the car has been drawn by a horse, and it's quite a sunny day, etc. That gives you an idea of it. Of note, Chaucer was writing the Canterbury Tales whilst he worked here as a clerk. Don't worry, I haven't read them either. Anyway, the palace was quite successfully torn down in the Peasants' Revolt of 1381. You wouldn't understand the peasants' point of view though. You know, they had no money, the plague hospitals were full, there were crippling taxes, there'd been an unpopular overseas war. It was a totally different time. Bits of the palace were reused to house a military prison, and in the 1500s it was rebuilt to become a hospital, until finally, just like every building ever built in this city, the site burns to the ground. Out of the ashes in this case, in 1880, a theatre was built. And whilst the theatre suffered a few fires, it's still there. In fact, that's its original entrance behind me. Now, the owner, Richard Doyley Cart, another fabulous name, decided to make it the first public building lit entirely with electric light. So he needed to buy a plot of land next to the theatre in which to build a generator house. And then at some point he realised he might make a lot more money if he put a fancy hotel there instead. And the money keeps rolling in. You know, if I made hotels instead of YouTube videos, I'd have a lot more money. And a lot more hotels. If you're wondering what Count Peter would have made of all of this, you can actually ask him. He's still there. And round the corner, there's a remnant of the medieval hospital tucked away, officially titled the Queen's Chapel of the Savoy. Interestingly, this place was mentioned in Brideshead Revisited. Again, haven't read it, as the place where divorced people could come to get married to somebody new, which wasn't really allowed at the time. The vicar eventually got caught and got transported abroad for his terrible crimes against morality. Quite right. Apparently I've come on literally the one day that it's closed. I have failed. Now, credit to someone on Reddit called Hung in Sarf London for directing me to this. No ordinary street light, but a sewer gas destructor lamp. It uses the regular gas supply to light the flame, like any other Victorian street lamp would, but underneath it's also connected into the sewer system, so that flame draws up the sewer gas, which also partly feeds the flame, clearing out the stinky 19th century pipes. Hypothetically, if ever the gas built up to near explosive levels, the lamp would flare and burn it off, instead of the sewer blowing up and hurting all the swanky people nearby with their money and their electrified hotels. This one is the only one left in London, but itself is actually a recreation after a rubbish lorry mangled it a few years ago. But it's still quite fun. So why embankments? And what do they have to do with the sewer? Why am I asking myself questions like this? What if I'm never able to stop talking like... Since the days of Christopher Wren, who basically built everything, there have been proposals to create an embankment. It would add land, which is very valuable. It would make everything look a lot prettier alongside the river, but nobody wanted to pay for it. Then a bit of an engineering legend and friend of Isambard Kingdom Brunel comes along, called Joseph Bazalgette, who thinks he can solve the city's cholera problem that was literally plaguing London at the time. The theory was that sickness came from bad, smelly air, usually from rotting organic material, and the River Thames at the time was literally an open sewer. Everything just drained straight into it. So hypothetically, if you could stop the bad air from the Thames, you could stop the sickness. The theory, as we'll probably talk about in a later video, was totally wrong, but Bazalgette's solution to it accidentally fixed the problem. He designed a sewer system that would run underneath all the streets of the city and collect into massive central arteries, one of which ran alongside of instead of flowing into the Thames, to whisk away all the waste and take it somewhere nobody cared about, in this case Beckton. There it would still flow into the river untreated, it's just now it would be away from all the important people, and thus the Victorian effluent would float away gracefully into the sea. And that's essentially the trigger for building the Thames embankments, to give us somewhere to put this sewer. On the north bank, it ran under the Chelsea and the Victoria embankment. And quite cleverly also includes the Underground's District line. But appropriately, the large Victoria embankment compares to the decidedly leaner Albert embankment to the south. This one has no infrastructure use, but it's seen in hundreds of movies and TV shows, and fronts onto St Thomas's Hospital and the MI6 building. Whilst we've made big improvements since then, when you flush your toilet in this city, your waste is still fundamentally traversing Bazalgette's system, which is a testament to how unbelievably good it was. Any waste management fans out there can pay homage to the god of sewers by coming down here to the embankment just at the end of Northumberland Avenue at Bazalgette's memorial. And of course there's Embankment Station. What I like best here is that the voice of the late Oswald Lawrence, heard here on the Northern Line platforms, "Mind the gap," was reinstated after it was removed in an upgrade at the request of his widow Margaret, who missed him. And so he barks at commuters now from beyond the grave. Further along, underneath Waterloo Bridge, the doors of a nightclub used to admit not drunken guys and gals, but trams. This was the exit of the Kingsway tram subway, 1 kilometre worth of underground tunnels for a now defunct transport system. Now, they would have originally popped out of a little portal to the west of the bridge, but after World War II, Waterloo Bridge was rebuilt, and they would have started popping out from under the bridge itself, joining out with the tracks running up and down the embankment. And the other end was here, just north of Holborn Station. Now, here you can see the tram tracks and the original entrance. You can still see some of the original pedestrian entrances to the underground Holborn tram stop, now shut off. And half of the tunnel is now a roadway that starts on top of Waterloo Bridge and exits onto the Kingsway. Finally, we arrive at Somerset House, a building so impressive it's almost as nice as where I live. It was built in the 16th century and played home to many aspects of second-tier royalty. In fact, Queen Elizabeth lived here, Queen Elizabeth I lived here before she was crowned. Sir Christopher Wren, who basically built everything, eventually renovated it, but even his was demolished after it fell into disrepair. It's this downfall that would later create a Victorian myth. Just next door in Strand Lane, a small public pool, which is very difficult by the way to film through a thick window, filled from an underwater source, and it gained the reputation for being a Roman bathhouse, and Charles Dickens calls it as such in David Copperfield. Also haven't read that. I have seen the film though, which is something, I guess. But it was actually the cistern for this magnificent fountain that was in the back garden of the old Somerset House, and it isn't Roman at all. London is now filled with great public buildings, but back in 1776 there really weren't any. Think of 10 Downing Street, a kind of ordinary house with a lot of very extraordinary things going on inside it. Somerset House was rebuilt to be that first great public building, containing the Surveyor General, the naval offices, birth, death and marriage records, things like that. Along those lines, in the 18th and 19th centuries, anything which duty had to be paid on would have had to have been brought down the famous stamp stairs to the stamp office and marked to show that tax had been paid, which included every single newspaper printed until 1855. The facade is very impressive, but let your eye be drawn to this arch, which would have allowed boats to sail in and out of the house, bringing in and out people and goods. Nowadays, it seems to be blocked off by something. Oh yeah, it's the embankment. There's a tiny bit more to the embankment. In fact, it goes just up to Blackfriars, but I think we've done enough for today. And I'm a little bit sick of my own voice. So, goodbye.